Hello YouTube, welcome back to my channel, and in this video I'll be discussing the battery performance on the Alcatel Idol 4. Now the Alcatel Idol 4 has a 5.2-inch Full HD 1080p panel along with 2610 mAh battery. This is slightly smaller as compared to the battery that you have on the Idol 4S, which is a 3000 mAh battery. So consequently, most of you, I'm sure, watching this video should be asking me, is it worth investing in the Idol 4 or should they go for the Idol 4S? In fact, this question has been asked to me quite a few times in the last few weeks, and that's why I'm doing this video, and I'm going to show you guys how the battery performance on the Alcatel Idol 4 is with the 2610 mAh battery inside. In my style, especially those of you who follow me, you know my style already. I'm going to be giving you a few screen on times, both on Wi-Fi and also 4G LTE, and some standby battery times as well to see how the performance of the phone is. Now before we do this, let's quickly have a look and see which version of Android this phone is running. So settings, and then going into about phone. As you can see, it's running Android Marshmallow 6.0.1 along with 1st of August 2016 security patch level updates. So quite not the very latest when it comes to Nougat obviously, and also a September update, but it's up there, and it's almost up there with the very best. I'm sure in a month or two they will catch up anyway regardless. Okay, so now let's get back into gallery and have a look and see that the screenshots that I've been taking for the past few days ever since I had the phone on me. In fact, I had the phone with me for quite a few weeks now, but I've been testing the HTC 10 and also the Nexus 5X and the Nougat. I'm sure you must have seen that video. Okay, anyways, so this is how the phone kicked off on day one. It had 11% battery and I fully charged it at 20%, and after that the very first thing I wanted to do was check the 4G LTE performance. That's because that's where most people ask me a lot of questions, and most people are going to be out and about at work, and if they don't have Wi-Fi then they're obviously concerned about a 4G LTE network performance. And as we know, 4G LTE always consumes more battery as compared to Wi-Fi. So as you can see here, on the very first day the battery was down to 6%, using pretty much 4G LTE all day. I made quite a few phone calls, used WhatsApp and my social media bits, Viber, MX Player, SoundCloud, Bluetooth music and everything else. NFC was on as well, even though it shows here it shows you Wi-Fi, but because often, as you know, the scanning is on at the back end, so it shows you as if the Wi-Fi is scanning at all time. It wasn't the case. Wi-Fi was off and I was on 4G LTE, and eventually after a full day of using 4G LTE I was able to achieve 3 hours and 26 minutes of screen on time. Now this is pretty much standard what you expect from a phone with a 5.2 1080p HD screen along with a 2610 mAh battery. If they would have put a slightly bigger battery, I'm sure the 4G times would have been slightly better. Okay, then whilst I was using the phone I also got an update from Alcatel. It was just over 500 meg, as you can see, 511.1 meg. It's a quite major, huge, big update with several performance and other amendments inside. They never give you a change log. I couldn't see any change log, but all I could see was said, as you can see here, find the new update for your device. This update will improve your experience and performance. So very specific to the point and not disclosing any details, but hopefully with such a big update you do expect lots of changes. So obviously I was keen to know if the battery life would improve any further. Anyways, okay, and now here you can see at about 3 past 8 on 30th of August, at around 4 on Tuesday the 14th, that was the alarm though anyway. So at 3 past 8 I left the phone on standby. The battery was down to 94%, and when I checked it in the afternoon at 13:38, approximately after 7.5 hours, the battery was down to 92%. So in about 7 to 7.5 hours it had only lost 2% of battery. So a good overall standby battery drain, because the phone has stock Android and it's pretty much stuck on Android with a few features from Alcatel. So it's good that they have kept it like that. That's why they're getting a decent amount of standby times. Okay, again I tested the phone on Wi-Fi only. As you can see, the battery went down to 10%. Lots of phone calls, SoundCloud, everything, my social bits and bobs. As you can see here, streaming to music to Bluetooth via SoundCloud is one thing I always do on the phone. I listen to a lot of music, guys, so that's why I was doing that as well. And eventually after a full day of using the phone on Wi-Fi, I was able to achieve 3 hours and 36 minutes of screen on time, which doesn't look impressive. With a device like that, 2610 mAh battery and a 1080p screen, I did expect it to cross 4 hours, but initially in the first few days it did not. Eventually later in the day, later in the week it did, which I will show you in just a moment. Okay, again here on Wi-Fi, battery down to 5%, making lots of phone calls. By the way, the phone calls and the speaker is very nice. I love the front facing speakers. They're very loud, possibly the most loudest speakers I've ever heard, and that's why the call quality was very nice as well. Okay, YouTubing, as you guys know, I'm a YouTuber, guys. Phone Genie, SoundCloud, all the regular social media apps, and eventually I was able to achieve 3 hours and 47 minutes of screen on time, which was slightly better than what it was before. Like I said, as I moved along, and the battery kept on improving, especially after the update. Again, lots of phone calls, SoundCloud, and it was on standby for a while as well. 4G LTE down to 5%, and now here I remember I did use the phone mix. I did use 4G LTE and also Wi-Fi at the same time, as you can see on the signals here. So eventually I was able to achieve even worse than what I was before, at 2 hours and 33 minutes of screen on time. I've noticed one thing though, and which is pretty much normal with every phone. If you're going to be making lots of phone calls like I did for hours and hours of talking, I was making phone calls just to make sure that I can check the signal and the strength of the phone and the speaker as well, and everything. If you're going to be talking a lot, obviously the battery will drain, and that will not include any screen on time. Screen on time is the time when you interact with the screen. If you're not interacting with the screen and you're talking for hours and hours on the phone, then the battery will drain down. That's why my battery was slightly down as compared to the average result that you saw earlier, around 3.5 hours of screen on time, whereas here I had 2.5 hours of screen on time because of more voice calls and less screen on time on the phone using Wi-Fi or 4G LTE. Okay, again down to 2% using Wi-Fi and LTE both. Once again, lots of phone calls, and then eventually I received 2 hours and 58 minutes of screen on time. Again, pretty average from what I can see, and that too again because I made more phone calls and I spent less time on the screen. Okay, then eventually down to 4%. Again here I think if I remember correctly here, I did not use as much phone calls and I was mostly on screen, and that's why I was able to achieve in the end 3 hours and 53 minutes of screen on time. Here I made sure I did not make many phone calls because I was getting surprised again and again, why am I getting so less screen on time on the phone? And then I found out because I was making a lot of phone calls. So then I calmed down a bit on the phone calls and I switched my SIM to another phone, and then I put my other SIM in this phone, so just to make sure that I don't get or don't receive too many phone calls. Okay, so 3 hours and 53 minutes of screen on time here, and then again down to 5%, listening to music, as you can see in the top corner here, right in the middle top bit, connected to my Bluetooth and listening to lots of music. And also I played a few games on it, Ultimate Tennis and CSR Racing 2, and eventually also played Fight Club as well, and used the phone normal as regular using Wi-Fi and listening to music and playing games and stuff, and I was eventually able to achieve 4 hours and 39 minutes of screen on time. I must also admit that at this time it was about night time, so my brightness was down below 50%, and all the other scenarios before that, when the battery was around when the brightness was around 80-90%, that's when the phone was obviously draining out more, and obviously I was making more phone calls. That's why the screen on time was low. But as you can see here on Wi-Fi, I was able to achieve 4 hours and 39 minutes of screen on time. And this was the last screenshot, guys, that I took, but at least it gives you an idea though. If you're going to be not making too many phone calls and spending more time on screen, like using 4G LTE or Wi-Fi on social media and surfing, then on 4G you expect to get around should expect to get around 3 to 3.5 hours of screen on time. And if you're going to be on Wi-Fi and not making as many phone calls like I did, but mostly on screen, expect to get between 4 to 4.5 hours of screen on time, because I'm guessing most of you will probably keep the brightness above 50%, so you should be looking at around 4 hours of screen on time. So this is the battery stats on the Alcatel Idol 4, guys. And those of you obviously who have seen videos for Alcatel Idol 4S, which has the bigger battery and obviously a bigger screen, I'm not too sure how the battery performance in that phone is, but you can see here, if you have that phone and you're looking at this phone, or if you're planning to buy this phone and you have looked at the videos on that battery videos on the 4S already, then I'm sure this has probably given you a better idea whether it's worth investing in the Alcatel Idol 4. I think it's a decent enough phone. It's a decent, as far as the performance is concerned, it's beautiful. Camera is nice. It's not too bad, not the best, but for the budget, it's just the right specs and what you expect from a phone with a 2610 mAh battery. Like I said, 4G LTE, 3 to 3.5 hours, and Wi-Fi 4 to 4.5 hours of screen on time. So guys, I hope you like my video. If you do, please give it a thumbs up. Any questions, please feel free to ask me in the comment section. And like always, please subscribe as a help, and I shall see you in the next video.